for 1 second and just introduce myself. My name is Manashi, and I'm a photo consultant and rep I'm based in Canada. And as a consultant, I work with photographers to curate their portfolios and work on their marketing to particularly in the commercial photography world. And as a rep, I have a small all-female roster. I'm committed to elevating women in the industry. So my roster, you can go check them out. They're a group of very talented women. And for them, I work with them on marketing their work and estimating on jobs and stuff like that. So if you have any questions, please ask them. And what am I going to do here? I'm going to switch over. So with these reviews, I really want to focus on, the everything that I can talk about with them in a general way. Everything is obviously subjective. I'm one person, but I do have a lot of industry experience, and what I say, just take it with a grain of salt. I'm not here to offend anyone, but I also want to give you value. I want to make sure that you have information you can walk away with, so that you know kind of next steps and things that you can do to improve things. So when I talk about things that might not be as positive, I'm not trying to offend anyone. I just want to get you some good information. Okay, so let's get to this. This is Maria Squire's website, and it looks like at the bottom, it's a Vigbo site, and I actually haven't heard of that. I work with a lot of different photographers on a lot of different platforms, and this is definitely one I haven't heard of before. So my overall, when I first get here, I like the simplicity. I like the feeling that I know exactly what she shoots right away. I go to the menu, and the menu is easy to navigate. I click on it and I can see very quickly that she shoots food photography and product photography. So I do like that. I think in a menu for a commercial photography website, it's really important to be descriptive and to use things that tell people what your niche is, what you shoot. I know it can be really tempting to put things that are more creative or titling that's creative. And it's way better to be able to direct viewers, because they want to also remember where they saw an image. Where did they see something? So if they were looking here, they would know, okay, that was in the food photography section, or that was in the product photography section. So I like that. I like the simplicity of it. When I click in, so oops, sorry, that just zoomed for a minute. When I open it up, I do get that she's a food photographer, but I kind of feel like I'd want a little bit more. In her case, and I'll kind of talk more as I go into each of the different galleries, but I feel like a grid would serve her well. I think this image first of all, doesn't really tell me too much about like what she shoots, her overall style. It's not an amazing image. It doesn't really pull me in to want to see more. While I do sometimes love to see like a big image when you open a website, sometimes the grid is a good way to go to give people a big kind of overall glimpse of it. However, I'm not an advocate of always using a grid. I know a lot of photographers and a lot of people in the industry think that you should always have a grid. I don't think that at all. But in this case, I do think that a grid would be nice. I don't love at the bottom seeing this information. For me, it cheapens it. It makes it feel like I can see that it's a template. I can see that, the copyright information is there. I don't mind social icons, but it feels a little clunky to me. It doesn't feel like exactly, it doesn't feel professional. Okay, so I go into the galleries. So I'll open food photography. Okay, so here we are. I don't I'm not crazy about seeing font copy up here. It also doesn't feel very nicely designed. If you're going to have copy on a website, the design should kind of fit with the rest of fit with the work, fit with the brand, fit with everything. So the first thing that I notice, and this is a very big thing, is that the image quality is very poor. It's not that the images are necessarily poor, and I'll show you after in a second, but I immediately see that the image quality is poor, meaning that either the images are not sized correctly or something with the template. There's some reason that these images are not coming up nicely. And that is a big deal. I don't want to go to a website when I'm looking, if I'm hiring a commercial photographer, to go to their website and see that the images are pixelated or don't look good. And, I can look at this and it looks like it's going to be an interesting image, but I don't I can see that the quality isn't there. And then that makes me think, oh, can you not deliver, images to spec, or am I going to end up with images that are not high quality? So when I click on it, that's the size. So this is the size that the image probably is on her back end. And, it's up-resing it in the template. And so I'd rather see it like this than I would blown up when it doesn't, make the image look good. So but when I do click in now, I'm seeing the images really small. So there's definitely some kind of back-end issue going on that I would look into. In this case, I would even suggest looking into a different template, because I think, with some of these providers, there are a lot of limitations, and you can't, you can't make a lot of adjustments, and a lot of the, quality issues and stuff like that. So in this case, I would suggest looking at a different template and seeing what's out there. I also feel when I look through her work, so I'm looking here and that's it. That's all that there is. And I feel like if you're a food photographer, I want to see more of your work. I see that you can do good food photography, but I'm not seeing enough to give me an idea of that you've shot a lot. Right now, it feels like there's not a lot of work on here, and maybe you're just starting out, which is fine. It's fine to start out small, but as you grow, especially because you only have 2 sections, we want to kind of build those out as quickly as possible. And also, I don't think that this copy is necessary at all, even without the design aspect. It's not really adding value. I'd rather have it be image centric. How's everyone doing there? Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions popping up, so I'm going to just keep going along. Okay, so now we're in the product. Am I? Yes, I'm in the product photography section. Again, the copy is not serving. I don't get it. The image is so big and it doesn't look visually appealing to me when I get to the page. But it also, again, not enough work here. There's some images that seem to be sized a little bit better. And like this one looks like it's fine. And when I open it up, it is bigger. So there's something going on with, the images seem to be processed out at different sizes. And that's a big thing when when you want to put them on your website. You want to make sure the sizes are consistent so that the quality is, and that also so that when you're looking in each gallery, like in the last gallery, the images were super small. In this one, they're large and almost taking over the screen when I go into the portfolio viewing kind of way. I also, as I mentioned before, there's the thumbnail views option, and there's kind of this option. I mean, there are a bunch of different ways that you can show photography on a commercial photography website. And I always like to decide how that's going to best be how the work is going to best be showcased based on the work. So, whether you're going to go into a standard portfolio viewing way. Like I do prefer in this case with her, the choices, the thumbnail view or this view, I way prefer this view because then I can actually, you know, spend time and see the images in the quality that they actually have been exported at. But it does feel a little, the website itself feels a little basic. And I think, again, my gut right now is that this is a template issue. By the way, Maria is one of the people who replied to my email, and she wasn't able to make the live stream today. So she's not here to ask any questions, but normally I would ask, you know, the photographer to step in and ask any questions that they have about particular things that they're looking for answers for. So again, with this, I think the template is really not serving her work. It's not, it's making it feel very amateur and not well thought out. Okay, so those are the two sections. Then we'll go to her about page. The about page is here. We see an image of her. We see, hey there, I'm Maria. And then, you know, she talks a lot about, you know, I'm a food and product photographer. Great, right away she's telling us what she does. That's good. I think that it's important to use the bio to explain what you do, but not necessarily go into a lot of, like, it's not like in the consumer world where you are telling a story and you're really drawing your clients in with stories and with being kind of personable. And like in this case, this feels very consumer to me. Hey there, I'm Maria. That's not something that I would recommend on a commercial photography website. I think that in your bio, you want to be, you know, simple, to the point, straightforward, and explain. And not, you know, when people are going here for commercial purposes, they're coming here to see your work, and yes, to find out a little bit about you, but they don't have a lot of time. They don't want to mess around and you know, read things that are kind of irrelevant. So I think even when you're going to get funny or anything like that, you want to keep it you know, very focused on who you are and getting that across. Like, don't try to be funny if you're not funny. Don't try to be cute if, well, I don't mean that you're not cute, but you know, but like, just don't bring those things into it when they don't need to be. So keeping it really simple. I don't love the layout of this. I think that, again, this is a template issue. Maybe there's limitations as far as what fonts can be used, and you know, how this seems floating over here and this seems odd up here. It just, I think, you know, take this out because it's really distracting. Make the image smaller, bring the copy over a little bit. Again, this feels not appropriate down here. I know copyright is you know, is a good thing to have, but I actually don't think it's necessary on a commercial website. It's understood that everything is copyright, and anybody who's going to steal an image is going to steal an image. And the copyright is kind of, it is standard. Every image is copyright. So it's not necessary to put that down there. If you do want it, maybe there's a way to make it over here or a little less invasive to the rest of the site. And same with this. I don't want to see that it's a site by Big Bow. Okay, so then contact here. Again, the design aspect, but the big thing that I want to focus on here is that a contact form is not something that you want to have displayed on your commercial photography website. You want to have your email address clickable and ready to click right away, and you want to have your phone number there. But a form is, first of all, it's limiting the ability for people to contact you right away about your work. So again, this is more of a consumer kind of way of doing contact, whereas in commercial, you want to keep it pretty basic, to the point. Okay. Irisa asked if what you would suggest writing on an about page. So on an about page, as I mentioned, I don't know if maybe there was a bit of a delay, but when I was talking about that, I think, it really depends on the person. Um, some people can pull off things that are a little bit more, that have a little bit more personality to them, that have, like, maybe a little bit of humor, especially if that's part of your work and it's part of your personality and it makes sense for it to be there, then yes, bring that into it. But I still think keep it pretty simple. And but generally, I'm a or, depending on how you want to uh, present it, but a commercial photographer, lifestyle photographer, product photographer, food photographer, whatever your niche is, being as specific as possible. Where you're located, you can talk a little bit about your artistic approach, or maybe a story about how you got into photography if it feels appropriate, and if it doesn't feel too kind of cliche. But otherwise, if you're struggling and you're feeling like, I don't know what to say, and I know that this is something that actually a lot of photographers do struggle with, I would just keep it super simple and not try to overcomplicate it and not try to make it fancy, because it's not fancy. It's 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 useful. It's a guide. It's how people can understand more. It's also a place that you can talk about clients that you've had. It's a place that you can talk about where you're able to work. I'm available to work, locally or globally, that kind of thing. Uh, let's see. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if you have anything more specific about that. I'm sure, like, in the weeks to come, I'm going to be talking more about it. Like, different websites are going to bring up different things. So yes, this will be available to watch after. The live stream will stay here, and you can always go back to the link and watch it afterwards. Do you always think it should be in third person? No, not necessarily. I think that when you're writing it, it will, whatever feels right for you. I don't think it matters either way. Okay, that was Jennifer. Thank you. Great tips. Okay, awesome. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to talk about with Maria's website is, so here I am on her site, and as I've gone through each of the sections, I did go to her Instagram, and I wanted to show you this because when you go to her Instagram, I get way more of a sense of her as a photographer. I see more work. I see the quality of her work. So her Instagram, I think, is a more active and interesting place to view her work as a portfolio. And Instagram, I do think, is an extension of your portfolio. Well, it's not an extension, it's another version of your portfolio. And it's another opportunity to show your work in a different way, the same work, but it's going to be viewed differently because of the space, and also just because of the way you're showing work. And that's one of the big things that I do with my clients is one of the things that I do is pagination and working with imagery, bringing it together to tell the story of your brand, to tell the story of your work. And so when you look at it in different contexts, like here, we're looking at her work in a grid on Instagram. So we know the limitations and the abilities with Instagram. So we're looking at it in that context. But it's totally different over on her website. And that's what you want. Like, you do want to have like a different experience for people. If I went to her Instagram and her website and got the same feel, then that's not necessarily the best use of it. But it's going to always feel different because of how the images are ordered and how the grid is ordered. All of that plays a part in how your work is perceived. Putting an image in that doesn't make sense in the, like, if there was suddenly motorcycle shot in here, it's going to feel completely out of place, and then it dilutes the rest of the work. So a lot of curation is taking images out, removing things that are not working. But so anyway, her Instagram is a lot more it's stronger. It's where I would send people if I was wanting to kind of, if I were her and I wanted to relay to a client what I did, this is where I would send them. However, the one thing that I would say about her Instagram is, and this is entirely based on the fact that I'm talking about commercial world, is that I don't get the feeling that she is a commercial photographer because of having, you know, a lot of these headings are speaking more to a consumer audience or a blog audience, and not to a commercial audience. Because again, with commercial, straightforward, straight to the point. There's stock photo, so she's referencing stock. And then when I click here, it opens up the hub, hire the perfect photographer for your next project. I have no idea what that has to do with anything. This should be a link to her website. That link doesn't help. It doesn't help me get to her work. Like, I want to be able to get to her work, contact her if I'm hiring her for commercial work. I also think that, you know, putting things in here like food photographer, great, visual storyteller, great. I wouldn't necessarily put, you know, that you're a contributor at stock places and things like that. I think, you know, if you're doing stock, that's great. And I think stock is a really great way to build out, you know, create revenue for yourself and all of that. But I don't think it's necessarily something that you want to advertise to your commercial clients that you're doing. Partly because you want them to come to you, not go to the stock agency, but also because it kind of dilutes you as a photographer. Yeah, and then she's got her location here, which is also good. So I think that about covers it. Is there anything else anyone would like to ask about this? I'm seeing some questions in here, so let me just see what they say. Where are we here? Is all the negative space an issue? Peter asks, Peter Rabin. Is all of the negative space an issue? I'm assuming that you're talking about her website. And like, I guess if I go, you know, say for example, into here, I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of wasted space. I think this grid, for example, should be a lot smaller and there should be a lot more work in here. I do like seeing images larger because then I can get the impact of them. But I think this can be brought way up. There can be, you know, using the space a lot more. However, I will say that with certain photographers, now this is way too small. It's like not using the space at all. But I do sometimes like seeing white space around images because it gives me time with them. But again, it's always dependent on the work and the photographer and kind of what's trying to be achieved, the overall brand, etc. So did that answer your question? I'm not sure if that's what you meant by negative space. Oh, the about page. Okay. The about page. So I don't think that there's a problem with space around. I think the about page is always kind of a challenge to make it look nice because you're dealing with copy and images and trying to like, and usually there's like not much copy unless you put your client list on here as well and other things. So I think that this needs work, but I do think that generally you're going to have a lot of white space around your bio. But again, if you work with a designer or something, they can make it look good for you and lay it out on the page so that it's not kind of like floating in odd places. But some of the templates do have some limitations with how you can make them look good. Does that answer your question? Okay. Jeannie asks, when should you have a client list? I have mixed feelings about this. So when you should have a client list. So I think that there are different ways that you can incorporate your client list depending on where you're at in your career and also what kind of clients and everything like that. So there are a few different ways that you can do it. If you have not had a lot of clients, you don't want to showcase that. So I wouldn't suggest having a whole client section if you've had five bigger clients. You would then want to incorporate it into your bio somehow so that it reads naturally and still talks about some of the bigger jobs that you've had. If you've had a a little bit of a bigger one, then you can still add it into your bio page, but make it a list underneath, or like a commas between everything, and kind of list them that way, or you can list them vertically. But once you get into where you're working a lot, say you have a lot of editorial clients and you have a lot of commercial clients, then I would suggest having a client section. And you can either have a client section that's list based, or you can, and I think ideally you want to get to a point where you've got tear sheets that show how your images have been used, with how it's been used with in the end use, so that it has the client name on it, whether it's a magazine or whatever, with how it looked in the article, because it's, first of all, another way for people to look, oh, like I can see how your work applies, and to also give your the clients that you've worked with, so it gives you more clout, I guess, in the industry. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Jeannie, if you have anything else that you like, what were you having mixed feelings about? What was your difficulty with it? And then maybe I can expand upon that. Matt Law says, this is great. Should you share credentials or formal education in your bio? I think if it's relevant, yeah, totally. Like if you went to art school, or if you went to, graduated from a photography program, or something like that, definitely you can put that in your bio. And yes, if you've won awards or anything. However, the one thing that I would say is that if you are coming from the consumer world and moving into the commercial world, I wouldn't say that you want to necessarily focus on awards that you've won there or things that you've done in that world, because it's just a completely different industry, and it will kind of dilute what you're doing. So I think there are ways to kind of reword it or rework it while you're still being, obviously honest and upfront about who you are, but you don't necessarily want to showcase the consumer side of things. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, so Jeannie said that answered her question. Jamie Dunn says, do you think a portfolio needs both grid view and slideshow? Sorry if you already answered this, tuned in slightly late, no worries. I kind of addressed it, but not really. Let me go here. Yeah, so I don't always think that every website should be thumbnail forward, like grid forward. But I do think that it's important on a commercial site to be able to toggle between the two. So I know that some of the Squarespace sites don't, like, they may now, because I know they've added features that they didn't before, but there should be an area where you can, if you're in portfolio view, and then you want it, like right now I have, the only way to toggle back is the X here, but usually you'd want to have something that says, oh, thumbnail view, portfolio view, so that you can go back and forth. So I think it's important to have both, but what's forward facing really depends on the work. Because like when I'm doing a landing page, the main page, I want it to show immediately what kind of photographer this is, and that is not always best achieved through the thumbnail view, because yes, the thumbnail view gives an overview of what somebody does, but it doesn't necessarily do it in the best way. So if it doesn't make the work look good, like say for example, if you're an interiors photographer, interior work, you need to be able to see the image. If it's floating with a whole bunch of other images, you're not going to be able to really access the work immediately. You're going to have to click in to do that. And so I think in cases like that, something like a big image that takes the whole screen over and then does like an automated slideshow where it goes from one to the other, something like that. It really has to suit the work. Say like landscape, like, yes, you want to emphasize the vastness. You want to work with the images that are there. So if the work is grand and big, you want that right away. You don't want to be looking at a bunch of thumbnails that don't get the impact across. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Well, I think that about wraps it up, unless anybody else has any other questions. I'll give you like a minute to ask a question. While I'm waiting, I'll just let you know again, if you weren't here at the beginning, I am going to be doing these hopefully weekly. Each week I will be, after this live stream, I'm going to post another post on my Instagram, and whoever wants to enter can just enter there. You just type enter me, and then I'll be doing like next week. I'll be doing one more. I do a random draw. If you entered last week, you just have to post on the Instagram post. You don't have to fill out the form again. So just do it that way, and I'll be able to navigate it on the back end. And what else? I am focusing on commercial work. So if you are doing more consumer work, if it's wedding, I probably will skip it. But if it's something that could be potentially applied to commercial, then I might do it, but I would be approaching it from a commercial angle and how you can make it more commercially appealing. So please definitely, let me know any questions you have, or if there's anything that you particularly want me to address. Jamie says, that makes sense. Is it a good idea to have copy on top of the portfolio page like that one has, like describing or introducing the gallery, or should it just be the images? Yeah, I did address that, Jamie. I know you weren't here at the beginning, but I did address that. I'm not crazy about this. I think the images should be bumped up and it should just be image, and save the copy for the about page. And that I don't feel that the copy is adding any value, and it distracts my eye. I want to look at work. I don't want to look at words on this side. Like, this is image. Whoops, you can't see my hands. This is image. This is where you tell them what to do. Hopefully that helps. Okay, so this has been fun, and I look forward to getting your entries for next week. And again, if you missed at the beginning, my name is Monashi. I'm a photo consultant and photo rep. And so this is what I do. I work on portfolios all the time. I work with marketing for photographers. So that's why I'm talking about it.